like many of you out there, I too was confused as to why the TV series Peacemaker was in production and was going to be the first spin-off off of James Gunn's Suicide Squad. It seems that James Gunn is taking a page out of Marvel's how-to and getting an obscured, really not known anti-hero and building him up similar to what he did with the unknown Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, DC hasn't had the best track record in adaptations in the movie genre, but some will debate that the TV shows are fairly good and some have even been critically acclaimed. You be the judge of that. I'm not here to debate whether those shows were good or bad. But Peacemaker was a unique TV show, if you will, and it being on HBO allowed James Gunn to tap into a very R-rated content that I think he only used to its full advantage in the first 2 episodes and then dialed it down by 100% for the remaining of the series. Whether that made it good or bad, again, it's kind of up to your interpretation.
Okay.
So in my initial review or the first episodes when it dropped, I considered it interesting and was going to hold out until I watched the whole series and then cast my judgment on what I thought this series was, whether it was good, whether it was bad. I just don't think I would have given it any justice.
Max, what do you want for dinner?
Justice.
By judging it from the first 2 episodes. Now that I have seen the whole series in its entirety, I feel confident in giving you all my review. So if you have not yet seen Peacemaker, consider this your spoiler warning. For those of you that have seen it or don't care, let's move on to the review of this TV series. First off, before I go in a little bit more depth, I enjoyed all of the acting. I enjoyed the set designs, the music involved. They had a very Guardians of the Galaxy, and I shouldn't say Guardians of the Galaxy feel, a very James Gunn feel to it. He uses old school tracks from the 50s, 60s, and 70s to put a je ne sais quoi in his material, and I'm here for it. I enjoy that aspect of his directing. Now, with that being said, I think this TV series had a lot more bad than it did good. Nothing to the cast and nothing to James Gunn. I think he did a great job in directing. I'm almost certain that HBO greenlit 8 episodes and wanted 8 episodes, but honestly, this series could have done better with 6 episodes. It would have been more condensed, more concise. The pacing would have been great. It started off great. The pacing on episode 1, episode 2 were perfect. But then episode 3, 4, 5, and on were just a lot of filler, and you could tell. So if you're not familiar with the plot is we follow up where we left off with Peacemaker in the Suicide Squad in the end credits where he's at the hospital. So we catch up with him. He's recovering well. He's about to get out of the hospital. Peacemaker manages to leave the hospital, though he was under the impression that he was going to be arrested. As I said earlier, he is an anti-hero, and if we remember what he did in the Suicide Squad when he stabbed Rick Flag in the heart, that is worthy of some jail time. But he manages to escape and head back to his trailer park because, of course, he's going to live in a trailer park, where he meets up with his friend, Adrian Chase, a sort of sidekick type of individual. Here, he finds out that Amanda Waller has instructed her team, again, if you remember from the Suicide Squad, the ones that betrayed her, Emilia, John, and newcomers Clemson, Myrn, and her daughter, Leota, have been tasked to join forces with Peacemaker to uncover and defeat an alien invasion that is putting the Earth in danger. So a very simplistic plot. Not going to dive in too much because I do want you guys to go check it out and judge for yourself. But for me, I thought that this, not that the plot was very simplistic, it was that it was stretched out too long.
That's what she said.
And again, I don't think it was James Gunn's fault, because if you hand me a big check and say 8 episodes, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to deliver you 8 episodes of content.
Show me the money! Show me the money!
And in true HBO fashion, James Gunn took advantage of that. And in episode 1, he has a full-blown sex scene with John Cena and a alien. And he shows a lot of titties and... or mostly titties, because I don't think he shows the junk, but it's pretty hardcore as far as what, HBO stat is. And I think, like most, when you get on HBO, you almost feel obliged to do that to grab the older crowd, if you will. But I don't think it needed it. Just like in his counterpart with Marvel, the implication is enough. You don't have to put everything out there to get your point across. A great example is Brightburn. Now, I know that movie wasn't accepted by a lot, but that is a great illustration of subtleties, but yet those subtleties can go a long way in showing or expressing your work, if you will. I just think that the Marvel content that he's done has given him a little bit more leeway with a lot more studios, and they are embracing the crazy as opposed to walking away. I will end it on this. I still feel that the opening credits were way too cartoonish, and I get it. That's what James Gunn wants to be known for, I guess, is his off-the-cuff humor and being unique. But when you try to be too much unique, you come off as just the same. There is way too many people trying to be unique, and they overdo it that you just become, again, pretty bland, just unoriginal, because there's so many people that want to be original. And though I enjoyed watching John Cena, which is a mass of muscle moving around and shows us that he's very agile in dancing, I just think a more superhero-ish opening would have been much better. The CGI also in this was a little bit iffy at places, and I understand it. And James Gunn, obviously, with working with Rocket the Raccoon and Baby Groot, when your human actors have to look at a point, you expect your graphic design team to place that object in eye vision of where they're looking at. But when John Cena is looking at his Eagly, I think is his name, I can't remember. You could tell that he's not looking where he needs to be looking, and there must have been a redrawn or something's goofed up. So I thought the CGI could have been better, and with as much money as they put into this, which was around, I think, but I'm not sure, around 10 million per episode, but correct me if I'm wrong. If that is true, that is a massive budget for CGI. And when in half of the episodes you're really only doing a CGI eagle, I think it was pretty bad. But again, This show was a hit for some. I know Twitter went crazy for it. To some, it was underwhelming. To me, it was okay. I hope they get a season 2, and I hope James Gunn is allowed to direct more DC properties. I would love to see his take on the Joker or his take on a dark Batman as he did in Brightburn with a dark Superman-esque, even though we're not saying that was Superman. So for me, this TV show gets a B rating from me. But those are just my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. And like always, that's a wrap.